Clap it up, Jay. Clap it up.
Oh, my God.
How about them Cowboys? Let's go. Let's go, Jay. How you doing this morning, baby?
I've been better. But thankfully, I did bet on your Cowboys to cover a week before the game, so I am happy they did, and I am happy for you looking fresh in that new Micah Parsons jersey. He had a pretty good game himself, so great performance by those Cowboys.
He did. 8 pressures. I think I saw a stat that it was the most from a rookie pass rusher in a game in a couple of years or in a minute. So, I mean, hey, listen. You tried to slander me on the old Twitter yesterday saying, because a lot of people did not give the Cowboys a chance. I'm listening to big media networks, people on Twitter. They've got no shot. We're down to Marcus Lawrence. Down to Marcus Lawrence, Lyle Collins, Randy Gregory. All of this stuff. No Michael Gallup. It's week 2. They're going to Los Angeles to play the Chargers, and it's Justin Herbert and Derwin James, and Joey Bosa's going to have a day. And for the most part, Tyron Smith held him in check. Zach Martin did his thing. Just an impressive performance by the Cowboys, but also. Oh
boy, here we go.
My USC Trojans. The USC. Yeah, this one. Do I need to put the Trojans helmet on today?
Don't put the helmet on.
Do I need to put the USC
show the
Trojans
people the helmet
on? The USC Trojans, Keaton Slovis, starting quarterback, goes down. The young freshman, Jackson Dart, one strip of black eye paint, goes out there and throws for them their 400. The Trojans look like they're in good hands. The Trojans win. The Cowboys win. The parlay hit last night. Listen, I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling great. You do not look like you're matching my energy and enthusiasm level. But good morning to all the people in the comments. Stone, Evan, everybody tapping in. This is Wake Up with Ray G, presented by Bets TV. And today we're just going to have fun. We are going to recap some of the games from this past Sunday, the highlights, the lowlights. We're going to get into, some bets and some props that went really well and some that did not hit, some that didn't pay off, and talk about the ramifications and implications moving forward for some of the things that we saw on Sunday. So without further ado, Jay, let's get into the morning run.
Wake up! This is the morning run.
Run, Forrest, run!
So as we talked about, the Dallas Cowboys beat the Los Angeles Chargers 20-17, and this was a good game. It was not the high-scoring shootout that a lot of people thought. It was going to be. I thought it was going to be. I mean, the over-under, I think, was 50, 55, 55 and a half, something like that.
It went up to 54 and a half or 55 and a half,
Yeah, 54, 55 and a half, depending on the book you used. But this was a much different game plan than we saw versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because Dallas was much more balanced on offense. It was not Dak throwing the ball, a million times. He only threw the ball 27 times for 237, had an interception, no passing touchdowns, which was strange. I bet put a unit on him to go over 1.5. I thought that was a lock, and he fumbled the damn ball. But we saw Zeke and Tony Pollard run the ball for a combined 29 times. Zeke 71 and a touchdown. He also had 2 receptions, 26 yards. Tony Pollard really showed up with 13 for 109. He had a touchdown, 3 receptions, 31 yards. And Greg Zuerlein boomed a 50-plus yarder to win the game. Listen, Dallas played lights out. This is a good football team. Dallas is a good football team. Homerism aside, they're playing very well. Mike McCarthy has these guys going offensively and defensively with Dan Quinn there. It's just a much improved team. You look at Justin Herbert and all the firepower that the Chargers have, and Herbert did his thing, 31 for 41, 338, 1 touchdown. He did throw 2 interceptions. For all the great arm talent that he has, there was one play where he rolled out to the right. It was like a 5-step drop, and he just threw like a 40-yard missile on a rope that I think very few quarterbacks in the NFL can make right now. Very few. And I'm talking like maybe Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen type throw to Mike Williams. The play was called back, but it was just an incredible display of arm talent. Eckler really didn't do anything on the ground, made his hay in the receiving game, 9 for 61, saved your fantasy day there. Keenan Allen had 108 yards, but only 4 receptions there. Mike Williams showing up big time early this season. Dallas is a good team. Micah Parsons and Travion Diggs really have sort of changed the culture of that defense. And then when you have Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch playing in complementary roles alongside Keanu Neal and Michael Parsons, it seems like they have more flexibility on the defensive side of the ball. There's more team speed. This is a good football team. And when DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory are back healthy on the edge, I think they could really make some noise. I know there are a lot of people tossing some silly stuff around about the NFC East, maybe the Giants, the football team, the Eagles. This is Dallas's division. They played really well. They earned that victory, and that was a hell of a win coming off of such a devastating loss week 1 because they had that in the bank. What were your thoughts on the Cowboys? CeeDee Lamb did his thing as well. I think he had 8 or 9 grabs. Amari Cooper, non-existent. It was just a good team performance. What were your thoughts on the Chargers Cowboys?
I was impressed, honestly. It was a thing with the defense, right? We saw it a bit last week, but again, still being Tampa Bay, they put up a lot of points. But this week, it was interesting because I know that Dan Quinn is this defensive guru, or at least spoken about as such, right? But we never really saw that in Atlanta. We saw this defense that would bend and break. But he has this Cowboys defense really in that they're going after big plays. They're making plays on defense. They are bending a little bit. They've allowed a few big plays, but they're young. And they're at the end of the day, they're making their hay in the red zone right now. You look at how many mistakes the Chargers made in the red zone. They had touchdowns called back. They had flags. You can put some of that on the offense, but part of that is the pressure that defense put on the entire game. And to allow that team to only score 17 points was just crazy. The Cowboys on offense looked pretty good, still playing against a stout defense on the road. But ultimately, it was that defense that really won them that game. Trayvon Diggs played out of his mind from snap 1 through the very end of the game. And Greg the Leg, he did his thing, man. Like returning back to LA, it was good for him. He was on the Rams for so many years, eventually got cut, ended up in Dallas, comes back just to hit a game winner in LA in SoFi. Kind of interesting to kind of follow that storyline, but very impressed with Dallas, and like you said, we thought that Philly had a long shot to kind of take the division after this week, but it's certainly Dallas in the driver's seat, and they do play on Monday night, I believe, this week.
Yeah, I mean, I was just incredibly impressed. Fantasy implications from this game, and I also think I'm really interested to see what Tony Pollard's lines are going to be next week, his rushing totals, because I don't think he's going away. I mean, at this point, Tony Pollard has standalone flex value. I mean, you can play him in a flex position. You can't take him off of the field. I am not going to ring the alarm, sound the trumpets for the demise of Ezekiel Elliott because he still looked good. He's a powerful, physical runner, and I think what's going to happen is this is going to turn into a 1A, 1B situation, a la Kamara, Mark Ingram back in the day with Tony Pollard working into this offense more. I don't think you can take him off of the field. He's got juice. He's got a little more – it looks like he's got a little more burst than Zeke. He's got a little more juice. Zeke's got that power. He's a physical runner, and I just think this works well. So is Zeke a high-end running back 1 in fantasy? Probably not. Probably a back-end RB1 because he's still going to get volume. He's still out-touched Tony Pollard. You're not going to see Zeke on the bench, but Tony Pollard, standalone value. Amari Cooper's good for a dud or 2 or 3 a season, but you got to play him every week because when he's on, he's going to go 13 for 172 and 2. So you've got to do that. And then from the Chargers side of the ball, Herbert's a stud. Keenan Allen, I'm not worried about him. Eckler, as long as he's involved in the receiving game, he's going to be fine. And then Mike Williams was a very, very good surprise. So let's go to Kansas City, Baltimore, who this one was interesting because the first series of the game, Sammy Watkins slips and falls. Lamar Jackson throws it right to Tyrann Mathieu, runs it back for a pick-6 touchdown. It's 7-0 right off the bat. And then he goes back out there, runs a little bit, completes a couple of passes, then throws into triple coverage, picked off by Tyrann Mathieu again. And all that was going across the Twitter airwaves was he sucks. They need a new quarterback. Lamar Jackson stinks. He can't throw. He's terrible. And the Baltimore Ravens ended up beating Kansas City 36-35, and Lamar Jackson looked incredible. Like, here's my thing with Lamar, man. And I've tweeted things out in the past saying that I believe that Jalen Hurts is a more developed passer. He's a better passer than Lamar Jackson. I still wholeheartedly believe that. But Lamar Jackson is never, ever, ever, ever going to be Peyton Manning. He's not going to be Drew Brees. He's not going to be Aaron Rodgers, and he does not have to be. Like, when you watch him run, I'm not joking. I'm old enough to truly remember watching Michael Vick in his prime from when Virginia Tech played Florida State in the national championship game to his rookie season to his, like, I remember watching Michael Vick. The juice that Lamar Jackson has and the control in which he runs the ball and he seemingly never takes big shots, that's what they've got to do. Exactly what they did in this game. Run, take your shots. When they get Rashad Bateman back, I tweeted out, Baltimore is desperately missing a wide receiver that can man targets in the intermediate quadrant of the field. It's either like check down or go for broke with Baltimore right now without Rashad Bateman. But Lamar Jackson, 18 for 26, 239, 1 passing touchdown, 2 interceptions, 16 carries, 107 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Marquise Hollywood-Brown, 6 for 113 and 1. Tyson Williams looked good, 77. Had a fumble right at the goal line that was popped up.
Yeah.
Caught by Devin Duvernay, scored a touchdown. But the Ravens, man, I was impressed because for him to have the mental fortitude to stick through that game and continue to play well after everything was going so bad to start, I don't know why there's so much Lamar Jackson hate. Let me tell you something. If people are getting onto Lamar right now, then we need to be getting on to Josh Allen because he's looked terrible as well. Josh Allen has not looked like the however many hundreds of $1 million he just got. He doesn't look like the same player he was last year. Lamar Jackson is a special talent, and it takes a special coaching staff, a special commitment from an organization to build around that type of quarterback, but you can win with Lamar Jackson, and I think he's a fantastic quarterback, even though he will never be mentioned in the upper echelon of passers. He doesn't need to be. Lamar Jackson and that Ravens defense really corralling down Tyreek Hill, not giving up the big plays, that's what won that game. I was incredibly impressed by the Ravens in this one, Jay.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man. And I think what's most annoying to me is this is what I wanted out of Lamar in week 1. You know, like, he made the mistake, so he had to put it on himself to get them back. But against the Raiders, they played fine, and I felt like he didn't take control early enough in that game. So that, to me, was kind of the biggest issue with this game in the first place, was that Lamar played so well. You know, you had the 2 picks, but after that, turnover free, had the team humming. They were running the ball like crazy, which is what we expected to see. But for me, it was he actually took control of that game and did what he needed to do to win it. Where against the Raiders, I felt like they kind of played not to lose. But to speak about Hollywood and how much slander he got last season,
yeah,
everyone's saying he's a bust, he's no good. And to be fair, he did score a lot on kind of broken plays, but they looked great in the RPO game as well. He looked great throwing the ball sideline to sideline on some of his throws. You know, there's a few throws he missed, but honestly, him and Hollywood have that chemistry. They've been working together, obviously, in the offseason, and there was that one broken play for the touchdown. But even outside of that, I know you talked about it, the throw he made to Hollywood last week in the end zone was an amazing play.
Yeah.
But just the ability for Lamar you can tell how much he's really been through because those 2 interceptions really didn't phase him all that much. They just kept running the ball. He kept, slowly working away.
He's unfazed,
He really
man.
was. He really was. And that's the biggest thing
water.
about him.
Yeah.
He's legit. Dude did not care about those picks at all. He knew that his team was good enough to give him a shot. And more importantly, he was good enough to give his team a shot to win that game. And that's exactly what they did. They went forward on 4th and 1. Like we all expected them to. And I think it was Harbaugh who you see the soundbite of him on the sideline saying, Lamar, you want to go for it? And Lamar's like, hell yeah. And he runs up the middle. He grabs the game by the balls and just took it away from Kansas City. Spectacular performance from Lamar. Couldn't be more proud of him. Even though I did bet against him and thought they would lose, he earned that game in every sense of the word. And I hope we see the same thing every single week from Lamar, because that's what we're going to need to win games.
We got to stop.
And he's going to have to put
man.
the team on his back.
Again, we got to stop. Put respect on Lamar's name. He will not be Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to dissect you from the pocket consistently week in and week out. But the skill set that he has and what he brings to the table, no other quarterback in the NFL can do that. Not even Kyler Murray, for as good as he runs around, he is not the runner that Lamar Jackson is. Lamar Jackson is one of one, and if you have him in fantasy football, you should be excited. I mean, 239 and 1, I'll take that every week if he's giving me 100 yards on the ground, and he makes it look effortless. Lamar Jackson, fantastic. Yep. Patrick Mahomes is a stud. I mean, this was weird because he played really well, but it seemed like he was outshined by Lamar Jackson. I mean, he had that one touchdown throw was just, I mean, he's like running up. Just how he did that, I don't know. I don't know how Mahomes. Listen, and let's keep it real about Mahomes. Best player, best quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion, bar none. But he gets away with a lot of bad throws as well because he's so talented. Oh, yeah. You just live with it, right? Like, he should have probably a couple picked off. He did throw one, but he throws some bad balls as well. You know, he just kind of YOLOs it, but when he's winning and when he's completing those more times than not, you just live with that. But 24 for 31, 343 and 3. And it seemed like he was just outplayed by Lamar Jackson. Travis Kelce, 7 for 109 and a touchdown. Death taxes and Travis Kelce going off. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I have been a resident truther on Clyde Edwards-Helaire Island. Listen, now, this was his first career fumble. So I don't want to put him in the Ronald Jones category. This is the first time this man has lost a fumble in the NFL. But 13 for 46, he ran well early. I'm starting to get real concerned about CEH and what Kansas City's going to do with him moving forward because that fumble did lose him the game. I do think that had he not fumbled, the Chiefs probably would have scored the ball or at least had a good chance to score. But, yeah, not good for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Just a little concerned. And if you have him in Dynasty, I don't even know what you can really trade him for right now. So you're kind of left just holding that and praying that he figures it out. But it's like I said last week. A lot of people were like, oh, it was the game script. It's not game script. Like, this is Clyde. Like, we've seen this pattern and this usage from this running back. He's an afterthought in the offense. Like, he's an afterthought. It's throw the ball downfield. Mahomes isn't checking down. They're not designing screenplays like Christian McCaffrey gets out of Carolina. He's an afterthought. Right now, he's a mid-range RB2. Like, you're banking on touchdowns, and when they get to the goal line, they don't even have him in. Darrell Williams got the goal line carry. Like, he's a mid to low RB2 at this point. Not looking good for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but Baltimore evens up their record to 1-1, and I think this is going to really set them. That you can tell that they wanted this game. Like, when the game was over, they were excited, jumping around like they won the damn AFC title game. This was a big win for Baltimore. The first time Lamar has taken down Mahomes in head-to-head matchups. Just fantastic performance by the Ravens. Fantastic performance by Lamar Jackson. Now, speaking of fantastic performances, the king is still the damn king. No, he ain't back because he's never left. Stop it. Like, stop it. Until the day that Derrick Henry says he wants to wrap it up, all these regressions, he cannot continue to do this. He can't keep taking all these touches. Yes, he can. He is built different. We've never seen a running back, 6'3", 240 pounds. Did you see the play where he pulled away from the safety? Like, even with the safety, 60 yards and pulled away from the entire Seattle defense. What this man is able to do is simply out of this world. 41 touches, 237 yards, and 3 touchdowns for the King. 6 receptions, 55 yards in the passing game. I mean, he's scoring. I think DraftKings tweeted out he is the 3rd player in the last decade to crack 50 points on DraftKings slate, alongside Christian McCaffrey and Le'Veon Bell. He is a unicorn. Yeah. Stop overthinking it. I don't care if it's Dynasty, Redraft, Best Ball, Madden. It doesn't matter. King Henry is the best pure running back in the NFL. And for fantasy purposes, if you have him on your team, you are in good hands. I'm seeing a lot of people talk about, well, his first half, he only had 60 yards. He only had 20 yards. that's Derrick Henry. We know this. Like, it takes a while for the locomotive to get going, but you continue to feed the beast. And right now, there are very few running backs in the NFL. Isn't it something when you look at the box score and you see running backs get 14, 15 carries and you're happy?
Yeah.
Like, dang, they got a good workload. Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry. Who else is getting 20-plus carries a game? Like, who else is getting
Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, right? They're getting a lot of carries.
Like that. There's a limited amount. There is a finite amount of true bell cow running backs in the NFL. And if you have one in fantasy, you better hold on for dear life, because that type of volume is not coming around often. David Montgomery, another one of those guys, is just, I don't know what to, I was just, at this point in these 60, 70-yard runs, they're not flukes from Derrick Henry. Like, this is within his weekly range of outcomes every week. A 50-yard touchdown run from Derrick Henry. Tannehill, 27 for 40, 347. Henry, 35 carries, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 for 55. Julio went off, 128. A.J. Brown has been stinking it up this season so far. The connection just isn't there. I traded for him and gave up a lot, and I'm not liking that today, but it's dynasty, it's long term. 3 for 43. What were your thoughts on the Titans' comeback victory over the Seahawks?
I thought the Seahawks just didn't want to win that game. You know, they were up huge early in the game. They're up 24-9 at halftime. So that says everything about how they were playing. Tyler Lockett was balling again. He had, I believe, 178 and a touchdown on 8 receptions. DK, you know, he had a decent game, 6 receptions, 53 yards. But it's interesting, you know, to see them get up so much. But the running game just would not get going. But for some reason, Seattle took their foot off the gas, and Tannehill and Henry, they just kept punching him in the mouth back to back to back to back. And it was just, it seemed inevitable probably by the end of the third quarter, at least to me it was, that the Tennessee, once they get rolling, and we saw this every game practically last year, the defense would allow a bunch of yards, a bunch of points, and Tannehill and Henry would have to slowly grind their way back, score more and more and more and more and more points. And that's exactly what they did. You know, everyone wrote off Tennessee last week because of what happened in Arizona. But this week they proved that they still got it. You know, like you said, King Henry still got it. A.J. Brown didn't have the best game, but Julio had a great game. It's just Tennessee's going to be a bit up and down, but this says a lot about Seattle, how bad they played. They had 10 penalties for 100 yards. Again, they barely scored anything in the fourth quarter and overtime. It was just a bad performance. And like I told you last week about Russell Wilson, he only threw the ball 31 times for 343 yards and 2 touchdowns. How is it that in a game that they put up 30 points, he only throws the ball 30 times? Yes, they're super efficient. He hit a bomb to Freddie Swain, but it's like, are you really going to keep running Chris Carson up the middle or on the sidelines, whatever? 2.7 yards a carry. And they kept running him 13 carries.
He looks like he's running in mud. Now, he gave you 2 touchdowns, so you're happy. He looks slow and terrible. And real quick, this is just Clyde, and I didn't know this. Cody Carpentier from Roto Underworld says Clyde's last 11 games, none over 100 total yards. Not good for Clyde, and I completely agree. O.J. Simpson, Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, Derrick Henry, like, I don't care how old they are. Like, I'm just, for me, I'm going to go down with the ship. Like, if he declines later this year or next year, if I have Derrick Henry, I'm just riding that out. So just saying that. But to your point about Seattle, they did take their foot off the gas, and you know, Carson looks, if anybody's regret, he looks terrible. Like, he looks terrible. He's still getting the volume, but this Seattle offense just blows my mind. Like, just let Russ throw the ball 50 damn times. Like, if that's what it takes, keep your foot on their neck. Like, I don't understand why these coaches like to let up and let's just run it out. Like, keep applying pressure, especially when you have a quarterback who's not turnover prone. What do you have to lose in that instant? But right now, I think Julio fantasy is his stock is looking up. Tyler Lockett, is he? I'm pretty sure he and Cooper Kupp are like the top wide receivers in fantasy right now. Keep starting your Seahawks. Keep starting Metcalf and Carson and Wilson, and hopefully we get some more volume, and you got to continue to start those Titans. But let's talk about Arizona. And my man Rondale Moore. Yes. Yeah. Like this year's draft class is treating old GQ so much better than 2020 because Rondale Moore was a player who was my wide receiver one for like 2 years. And then when he measured at 5'7", I was like, all right. The prudent thing to do was bump him down behind Chase and Smith, but he was still a top 3 receiver for me. We saw him get 7 catches, 114 yards, that long touchdown, just breaking ankles. He almost had another touchdown. I think it was a touch pass in the backfield. He got knocked up, fumbled it out of bounds. It wasn't a turnover. But we're just seeing some of the dynamism that made him so special at Purdue and why I think he's going to be a very, very, very good NFL player and a solid wide receiver asset on fantasy teams. Let's get more usage out of Rondale Moore. And I do believe that he led the team in targets in this game as well.
Targets and receiving, yeah.
Targets and receiving, yeah. They focused on DeAndre Hopkins. They said, we will not let Nuke beat us, and that's fine. But, they've got other weapons on this Arizona offense. Kyler Murray went off 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 31 rushing yards, and a TD. Again, great rushing quarterback, not on Lamar's level as a runner, in my opinion. And Max Williams, I've kind of poo-pooed the Cardinals tight end situation. He showed up 7 for 49. And from the Vikings side of the ball, Kirk Cousins was cooking 244 and 3. Dalvin Cook, 22 carries. Dalvin Cook is the Paul Pierce of the NFL. Dalvin Cook, every time he gets hit, he limps off. He walks to the sidelines, and then a play later, he's back in ripping off 13-yard gains, 2 receptions, 17 yards. Justin Jefferson, another solid game, 6 for 65, 1 touchdown. Still waiting for the big blow up Justin Jefferson game. I think we're gonna get that. What were your thoughts on this game?
Man, I am super excited because KJ Osborne looks legit. And we haven't been able to say that about the Vikings wide receiver 3 for some time. And he looks pretty good. For people who are not paying attention, I got to give Chris Meany some love here because it just popped up on my Twitter feed. But KJ Osborne is currently the wide receiver 20 in fantasy. He's got 15 targets, 12 catches, 167 yards, and 1 touchdown, coming off that big wheel route that he hit on, I think, the first or second play of the game against Arizona. Very excited to see what KJ Osborne's doing because he was kind of just like the forgotten man. I knew he was competing with Amir Smith-Marset, who frankly has looked terrible. But he won the job, and he's looked really good. He's been a great compliment to Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. But I do think, and I will say, it's a bit of a problem for those 2 guys. We know that offense to be a funnel to Dalvin Cook, to Justin Jefferson, to Adam Thielen. But if KJ Osborne's getting more involved, getting more target share, like this game, he led the team in receiving, and he still caught 5 receptions. So to think about, if you're going to start taking this offense and boiling it down to 4 guys instead of only 3, that just takes away from the kind of the supreme upside we saw from Jefferson last season, the supreme upside from Thielen. But I've liked what I've seen from Osborne so far. But talking about Rondale Moore, it's crazy because we know this potential in him. We always saw it. But to see that finally realized is it's something spectacular. You tout these rookies for so long. And to see them actually succeed and do these things, it kind of warms your heart a little bit. But it's crazy to see how last week it was all DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk. And this week, it's all Rondale Moore and Max Williams, and the running game was essentially non-existent for the Cardinals. They only rushed the ball 16 times outside of Kyler Murray, who rushed the ball 3 times. It's going to be a passing game only, man. Like the Cardinals, I don't know what to make of them. Last week against the Titans looked terrible. Cardinals defense looked legit, but now they need 400 yards out of Kyler just to come close to winning that game. And the defense looked terrible, allowing so many yards to Cook, bunch of yards to Cousins, bunch of touchdowns, broken plays. I don't know what to make of the Cardinals. What are your thoughts on them going forward? Are they still last in the division, or maybe the Seahawks starting to get a little bit closer to them so far? Cardinals still 2-0 on the year. Seahawks 1-1.
I think it's going to be a wild finish in the NFC West.
Yeah.
I mean, this is we talked about it in the team previews. It's probably the most competitive division in football from top to bottom. All of these teams have unique quarterbacks, and they have quarterbacks, right? Even Jimmy Garoppolo looked really good yesterday for the San Francisco 49ers. So I think with Arizona, they're going to be a high-flying team. Now, DeAndre Hopkins is going to get his. I have zero concern about him long-term. But I am interested to see who really carves out that role as the wide receiver too. A.J. Green had a touchdown in this game. He had a couple of grabs. Kyler Murray's just distributing the ball to whoever's open, and you like to see that. It's kind of unpredictable week to week. Like, am I going to tell you that I have supreme confidence in rolling Rondale Moore out there week in and week out? Not yet. But to see him involved, you said finally, I'll say so early. To see him involved in this offense so early as a rookie on a team with established playmakers and veterans, this only bodes well. And I think, again, much like Tony Pollard, when Cliff Kingsbury and that coaching staff go back and watch the tape today, there's no way that they can keep that type of player off of the field for too long. So I can only imagine that Rondale Moore's usage is going to continue to increase. So I'll be interested to look at his usage stats later today, see exactly how much he was involved in that offense, and start to project moving forward. But I think the sky and the future are bright for Rondale Moore. What else did we have happen yesterday? The Rams and the Colts played a game. And, the Rams barely got out of that one alive. Matt Stafford threw the ball early and often. Cooper Kupp is his new Calvin Johnson. I tweeted that out, that he is getting the Megatron treatment, and 163 and 2 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would assume he's got to be 1 or 2 for PPR scoring for wide receivers in fantasy. It's got to be him and Tyler Lockett. I'm trying to think of who else it can be. Tyreek had a dud this week, so I don't think he's up there. But Stafford to Kupp, that's a profitable and fruitful connection. And I think Cooper Kupp's price is only still going to rise. So if you have some Cooper Kupp, that's good. If you're going to place any prop bets on the Rams from a reception standpoint, right now Cooper Kupp is the option to go over. Robert Woods is sort of, I don't want to say an afterthought, but you can definitely tell he is not the primary target for Matthew Stafford. Carson Wentz, he ended up getting hurt. He took this bad sack. Aaron Donald rolled up on him. Ankle was kind of twisted up. He looked okay in this game. I'll tell you who looked really good was Michael Pittman Jr. I think he had like 10 grabs or 8 grabs, 120-something yards. Michael Pittman Jr. looked really good. Jalen Ramsey sealed the game with an interception of Jacob Eason. Wentz's status for next week is unknown right now for Thursday. It was an ankle sprain, and Jonathan Taylor was also hurt in this matchup as well. I think it's already been reported that JT is not going to play on Thursday, so we're going to see a heavy dose of Marlon Mack, Naheem Hines, maybe Jordan Wilkins. Did you watch any of the Rams-Colts game, Jay?
Yeah, it was a lot closer than it needed to be, and I don't know what was going on with the Rams offense. They looked pretty good for most of the game, but it was that I wouldn't say a blocked punt, because it was really the up man kind of slid in the way of it was just a brutal play. But anyways, it ended up being Ashton Doolin jumping on the ball in the end zone because there's a punt very deep on the Rams side. It was just a brutal game at the end. And then you see, Wentz gets hurt. Jacob Eason comes in, throws a terrible pass for a pick. But your point about Kupp, I don't know what to make with Woods right now, man. Like, I have a decent amount of Robert Woods. He's just one of those guys discounted every single year. I don't know, man. It just looks like he's not going to get the volume anymore. It's all Cooper Kupp, and he is just locked in with Matt Stafford. And those two guys are looking like, outside of Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson, I'd say they are the best connection in football right now. I don't think there's a connection that's better. And that's the biggest thing, is that you need that in fantasy. You want the guy who's going to be hyper-targeted, especially in the red zone, and we know that Kupp can be that guy. Woods just doesn't look like it's going to be his job.
Yeah, it's all good.
But to your point about the Colts, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say about Pittman, I was surprised to see his usage, because I expected that last week, and we didn't see it, but we saw it more this week against the Rams, which did surprise me, and it was encouraging to see for the second-year player.
Yeah, I think Pittman is on the rise. He's a good player, and they need to get him more involved in the offense. So here's my advice to all of you listening right now. Go trade for Michael Pittman. A lot of people still have not fully come around to it, but at 6'4", 215 pounds, the speed, the physicality, I think he is going to develop into the top wide receiver for that Colts offense. Go get Michael Pittman for the low right now. If you can acquire him in Dynasty, I think that is the prudent move. Go get Michael Pittman. So let's turn to the Eagles game. I want to talk about the Eagles and the 49ers. This one I was pumped for, both sides of the ball. You've got this Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo situation, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle versus Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, Miles Sanders. And this was like a defensive struggle. The best player on the field, in my opinion, in this matchup was Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, he was 22 for 30, 189 yards, 1 touchdown. There was a throw that he made. I want to say it wasn't to Sherfield. It may have been to Debo, where it was in between the safety and it was just a rope. And I was like, wow. Like, here's the thing. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not going to be the long-term starter in San Francisco, but I think he's going to get a starting job somewhere else. With some of the quarterback play that we're seeing right now, I bet you the Pittsburgh Steelers would trade Ben Roethlisberger or start Jimmy Garoppolo over Ben Roethlisberger right now in a heartbeat because he looks absolutely cooked. But Jimmy G played very well. Elijah Mitchell, 17 carries, 42 yards, couldn't convert on his goal line carry. They called it a touchdown. It got overturned. JaMychal Hasty looked like he had more burst. Trey Sermon comes in, rips off a big run, gets hit. He fumbles. Now he's hurt. I don't know what his situation is. 49ers backfield is in shambles. Deebo Samuel still dope. What on earth happened to George Kittle? It seemed like a year ago, 2 years ago, he was the most beloved tight end the NFL has ever seen. Tight end 1. Four receptions, 17 yards on 4 targets. George Kittle, just brutal from that position. And then the Eagles, Jalen Hurts started off playing really well, and then they did nothing. I mean, I think there was a drive where San Francisco drove the ball 90 yards and ate up like 9 minutes of clock to start the third. They just looked out of whack. Hurts, 12 for 23 passes. That's not going to get it done. 190 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Did run the ball for 82 yards and a touchdown. Boobie Sanders did nothing, 55 yards. In the receiving corps, no receiver caught over 2 passes. Quez Watkins did lead them in yards, partly because he had a 91-yard reception that didn't go for a touchdown, but nothing. Devonta Smith, dud, 2 for 16 on 7 targets. Rager had a touchdown overturned. Goddard did nothing. Just the offense just didn't look good. They didn't look in sync. That defense played well enough for Philadelphia to win, but the offense just was stuck in slow motion. Cody said they quit throwing to Quez Watkins. We know that's your guy, Cody. We know. He ain't the alpha, though. Quez is dope, but he ain't the alpha. But they did, I mean, that was a big play there, but Philly just took their foot off the gas, and it looks sick, man. It looks sick, They've got to do some things to incorporate these receivers, get Smitty the ball quickly, let him do work after the catch. But I think the Eagles will be just fine. But what's up with Kittle, man? Do you have any thoughts on George Kittle and what has happened to the King Kittle?
I mean, I don't want to overreact, but I think he's always been a little bit overrated, like I think that's just the truth, whether you want to believe it or not. Some people are Kittle truthers, but even in this offense, it's a very low volume offense to begin with. So to think that Kittle's going to get 130 targets the way Waller and Kelsey can because of the way the offenses are designed and the players around them. We saw Deebo Samuel again go for 6 and 96 yards. He continued his hot streak, and we talked about that amongst our patrons, saying, is he going to keep going? And we thought that he had the momentum. He has the chemistry with Jimmy G. Jimmy G likes to throw him the ball. So I don't see why Kittle's going to be an exceptional asset in fantasy because he's not getting that volume anymore. He's not that top target necessarily. Doesn't mean he can't be that guy, but he's not going to be the weekly starter that you want him to be.
I mean, I'm not going to go that far. You still got to start him weekly because it's the tight end position. I'm not going to go that far after 2 weeks. But
where would you place him though? Where would you place him? Because is he closer to Hawkinson or even below that?
He's still top 5 to me. It's still Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, Hawkinson, and Kyle Pitts in some degree.
But would you put him 5th? Would you take Pitts over him? Because Pitts looked pretty good this week. He's still obviously younger.
I would take Pitts and Hawkinson.
You think he's definitive 5?
Yeah. I'd take Pitts and I'd take Hawkinson and Pitts and Kelsey and Waller over George Kittle. Yeah. Still top 5, though. You still got to start him every week regardless. You have no choice.
But do you think he has higher value than that? So would you be looking to trade him away if you get the value?
No, I don't think people. I think people are. What have you done for me lately? I'd be hard pressed to see if anybody. I would love to see a trade where someone got Kittle for like a 2022 first. I bet you can't do it. Even a 2022 first. I bet you they wouldn't do it. I would do it. I mean, he's still legit. But let's go from one rookie wide receiver to another who his day was saved by a late touchdown pass. The Bengals lose to the Bears. Andy Dalton gets knocked out of the game. If he tore his ACL and came back into that game just to keep Justin Fields on the bench. That's all I could think. I was like, he tore his ACL. And then he limps off of the field, and then Fields is in. We all think Dalton is gone. And then he comes back and then gets strip sacked like the first play after coming back. Like, just go away, Dalton. I don't want it to end like that, but stop. Let Fields do it. He didn't look good either, but I didn't expect much from the rookie quarterback coming in when he didn't prep all week.
Yeah.
He didn't expect he didn't look good, but I'm not gonna put that on Fields this week, right? The Bears did win the game barely, 17-20. Joe Burrow looked god-awful, 19 for 30, 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Mixon, terrible, 69 rushing yards. Leading receiver, Boyd and Higgins. Boyd, 7 for 73. Higgins, 10 targets, 6 catches, 60 yards. I think he had 2 damn fumbles in this game. Jamar Chase only had 2 receptions, but I think the long one was like a 30-something yard touchdown grab. Joe Burrow just threw it up. Chase was open, made 2 defenders miss, saved his fantasy day because he was trending towards a stank path, just like Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle. 2 for 54 on 4 targets and a touchdown. What were your thoughts on this game, and what are your expectations on Joe Burrow and Justin Fields moving forward?
I think, unfortunately for us, we're not going to see the Joe Burrow unchained that I kind of expected personally. You know, Mixon still got 20 carries in this game in a terrible game script overall. It was just a brutal game to watch. But to watch Burrow just sit back there and just get rushed over and over and over. And I don't even think he had the interception in the first 3 quarters, but man, when they started falling, they were just coming in bunches. And Roquan Smith actually took one to the house, and that was what ultimately sealed the game for the Bears.
Yep.
But, man, what a brutal game otherwise. Like, Jamar Chase's touchdown was kind of signature Jamar Chase. He shimmied to the outside, came back, got leverage inside, and then caught up between 2 defenders. Ended up having them run into each other, which was hilarious. He just kind of walked into the end zone. But otherwise, man, like, I think for me at least, it was encouraging to still see Higgins be the alpha target-wise, which is kind of what I expected. I know you and I have had some pushback on that. But the rest of the game was just terrible to watch. Mooney, I believe, had 6 receptions for 60 yards. Which is good, you know, see him get involved. A-Rob caught a nice ball, too. He looked pretty good. But overall, just a brutal game. Montgomery couldn't do anything. Mixon couldn't do anything. It was just like they're just plodding back and forth, you know, running at each other's defensive lines. It was just awful game for me to watch. I caught most of the end of it. But, you know, but Joe Burrow's picks, man, they were just... Yeah, he was just telegraphing them. Yeah, it was like Zach Wilson-esque.
Well, speaking of Zach Wilson, so the Patriots won 25-6, another just boring-ass game. It was just boring and terrible. The Patriots did get the win to go 1-1. The Jets are 0-2, and they look bad. Like, this is a bad football team. Zach Wilson, I'm looking like I get rookie games. He looked bad. 4 interceptions, and there was one point where it was like 3 straight picks. He looked terrible. Yeah. Corey Davis did nothing. Michael Carter had a decent game, 59 rushing yards, and then Ty Johnson had 50. Elijah Moore, 4 for 47 on 8 targets. Corey Davis only had 5 targets, 2 receptions. We knew that the Patriots are going to take away the number 1. They did that, and the Jets looked terrible. Like, they just looked terrible. You don't start rookie quarterbacks versus Bill Belichick. Mac Jones, efficient, but not inspiring. 22 for 30, boring. 186. Yeah, just a boring game. Damian Harris, 16 for 62. One Marshawn Lynch-esque beast mode touchdown run. Yeah. This is the problem with the Patriots. They have no wide receiver. Like, Myers and Nelson are fine. They need to draft a wide receiver next year. Or maybe with Mac Jones, they can entice a free agent to come and play in that offense because they need a wide receiver in the worst way. They got the victory. You know, after this week, if I'm just looking at Offensive Rookie of the Year, it's still going to be Mac Jones. They won. He didn't do anything to lose it. And none of the other, like, all the rookies outside of, like, Rondale Moore really kind of dudded this week. Nobody really did anything that jumped out to me. None of them. Elijah, T-Law did nothing. Zach was terrible. Trey Lance didn't play. Fields didn't play well. Like, Mac Jones just holds serve just because, right? Zach Wilson definitely. Stone said, did Zach Wilson see ghosts yesterday? That man saw ghosts. He saw spirits, ghouls, hag witches, everything you can think of. He saw all that shit yesterday, and that game was another brutal game to watch. I got to go to The team that I think one of the biggest front runners for MVP alongside Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, Crockpot Carr is no longer the Crockpot. Derek Carr is cooking, baby, for the hometown Las Vegas Raiders. Another 300-plus yard day for Derek Carr, 382, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, as the Raiders take down the Steelers in Pittsburgh to go to 2-0. And John Gruden has the hometown team cooking, and I've got my Raiders gear on the way. Got a rep for Las Vegas, but the Raiders look great. Henry Ruggs, get him involved. They took away Darren Waller. It didn't matter. Hunter Renfrow, 7 targets. Darren Waller, 7 targets. Henry Ruggs, 7 targets. Bryan Edwards had a couple of plays called back, but he played well as well. Listen, the Raiders look good, man. The Raiders look good. The AFC West is looking competitive. Denver's playing well. The Raiders are playing well. This is going to be a tough division as well. We talk about the NFC West. The AFC West is pretty damn competitive as well, man.
Yeah, the Raiders look really good. And so it's interesting to see this game play out because the Bills stank against Pittsburgh. The Ravens kind of blew it against the Raiders. But maybe the Raiders actually won that game, and the defense is really, really good. And then the Ravens came and put a beat down on Kansas City. So it's just interesting to see these Week 1 narratives kind of play out again in Week 2. But the Raiders looked really, really good. And that deep ball to Ruggs, Carr stood in the pocket.
Yes.
He manipulated with the eyes, threw it right over the safety's head, and Ruggs just dropped right under it and ran in the end zone. That was an amazing play. Even talking about Hunter Renfrow, he made some spectacular plays down the stretch. Najee, had that one touchdown that kind of saved his day. Otherwise, he didn't look very good, but the Raiders look good on both sides of the ball. Max Crosby, again, had another dominant performance on the defensive line. Ben just looked like he was under pressure all day long. Kind of a boring game, a lot of defense in this one, but the Raiders turned it up at the end to really, put the pressure on Pittsburgh and ultimately won the game. And I think it was that long Ruggs touchdown that kind of sealed it for them.
I don't know. I don't know if this was the breakout game. I think there's more to Ruggs, right? I think the Raiders, because that was a long play that accumulated for over half of his receiving yards. So I won't say it was a breakout game for Ruggs. I think what this shows is you've got somebody other than Darren Waller. And as much as I love Bryan Edwards, Ruggs has an ability to change the game in ways that very few players can. So find ways to get him the ball quicker, get him in space, use him on some dig routes, get him acclimated to feeling like he could be the one. And I think Ruggs' ceiling, and I talked about this pre-season. Ruggs was a player I was going out and acquiring because if it were going to happen for Henry Ruggs, this was the season to do it. And we talked about this for Rager, for Ruggs, for all of these guys in that COVID rookie season. Give them a pass, man. No training camp, no mini camp, no preseason. Just throw them out there. Everybody can't be Justin Jefferson off the rip. I'm just saying it again. Say all the pre-draft narrative stuff means nothing. Derek Carr's playing like an MVP. I don't think he's going to win it, but he's playing MVP caliber football 2 weeks into the season. Henry Ruggs is going to be a big part of this Raiders offense, and I would be trying to acquire this young dude. Henry Ruggs is 22 years old? 21, 22 years old? Yes. That can run a 4.2, that can take the top off of a defense. Absolutely. I am very much whatever pre-draft stuff I talked about, I didn't think he deserved to be the number 1 wide receiver. Still don't think he should have been the number 1, 2, or 3 wide receiver taken in that draft. But all of that means nothing now. Henry Ruggs is a good player, and I hope and pray the Raiders continue to get him the ball. I would be remiss if I talked about this one because they were the biggest dogs on the slate, and they covered. And I told you this, and I bet this game on the parlay. I teased the Houston Texans. Houston Texans aren't a bad football team. They're not a good football team, but they're not a bad football team. And we saw them play Cleveland pretty damn tough yesterday. Now, Cleveland lost Jarvis Landry early in that game to a knee injury, but the Texans are playing good football for David Culley. And I can only imagine how much better they would be if they had Deshaun Watson. Now, Tyrod Taylor has been balling out early to start the season, suffered a hamstring injury, so insert Davis Mills. Had a couple of good throws, did throw an interception, but again, rookie being called into action mid-game is never ideal. But the Texans are not a bad football team. Again, not a good football team, not a bad football team. And Brandon Cooks just continues to do Brandon Cooks things, 9 for 78, 1 touchdown on 14 targets. Brandon Cooks is locked and loaded, stardom, low-end wide receiver 1 with that type of volume, high-end wide receiver 2 in fantasy. For the Browns, Baker Mayfield, another Baker-type game, 19 for 21, 213 yards. They don't let Baker cook. Nick Chubb, again, back to the original conversation at the beginning of the show. Very few bell cow running backs in this league. Nick Chubb, 11 carries, 95 yards. Kareem Hunt, 13 carries, 51 yards. Like, even Nick Chubb doesn't get bell cow feature back treatment. Like, these guys are just hard to come by in fantasy football. Demetric Felton had an amazing touchdown grab over the middle. David Njoku played a little bit, but I just want to give credit to the Houston Texans, who I thought would be the worst team in the NFL by far, and I do not think that title belongs to them. It could go to Jacksonville. It could go to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who lost to Denver. Denver looks fantastic, 23-13. Teddy Bridgewater just cooking. If you got Teddy, late round quarterback in fantasy, he's lighting it up. Even without Jerry Jeudy, 328, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Javonte Williams did lead the team in carries and rushing yards, so keep that of note. Cortland Sutton went off, 9 for 159, 12 targets, and I think I saw a stat that he had like 259 air yards, which is just insane. Teddy Bridgewater, people thought Cortland Sutton couldn't thrive with Bridgewater. Yeah, right. Teddy Bridgewater balling out. Trevor Lawrence looked god-awful, 14 for 33, 118, 2 interceptions, took multiple sacks. Positive news out of Jacksonville. James Robinson did lead the team in carries by quite a bit, but he did nothing with it. 11 for 43. Carlos Hyde only 2 carries for 7 yards. Laviska Shenault gets hurt. DJ Chark, told you, don't buy into the Shark hype. Not a fan. Not my cup of tea. Marvin Jones, 11 targets. He's the guy. That's pretty much it from this one. Buffalo, Miami. Tua gets hurt in the opening series. Does not come back in. They're saying it's a rib injury. You know, Tua and injuries is just brutal. Josh Allen didn't look that great. 17 for 33, 179, 2 touchdowns. Devin Singletary. Give Singletary his props. Kid is playing really, really good football. Zach Moss had another fumble in this one. He did get in the end zone later a couple of times, but Devin Singletary got his tubby too. So Singletary looks like the clear RB1 in that Buffalo backfield. Stephon Diggs still waiting for the Diggs breakout game, but 4 for 61 touchdown on 8 targets. Did lead that team in the Dolphins, you know. Jacoby Brissett, good luck with that. Gaskin, 5 carries. Don't know why they don't run Myles Gaskin at all. Malcolm Brown, 5 carries. Savon Ahmed, 6 carries. Jalen Waddle, 6 for 48 on 8 targets. Any thoughts on either of these two teams, the Broncos or the Bills, Dolphins, Browns, Jay?
Can I just reiterate how much I hate Urban Meyer? Like, just how much I hate this guy. He just has this team looking so bad. And you talk about Trevor Lawrence, 14 for 33.
Yeah.
Like, is that really the best you can get out of Trevor Lawrence? Because as much as we can say these rookies look bad and, you know, it's early, I just don't believe that Trevor Lawrence is this bad. Like, I don't believe that someone as talented as Trevor Lawrence, you can't design an offense that he can thrive at a 50% completion rate at. Like, Laviska Shenault had 7 targets and only caught 2 passes for -3 yards.
Yeah.
How does that even make any sense? Like, DJ Shark still maintained his 25% catch rate, which is insane. You know, Marvin, to point about Marvin Jones, he looked great, but he went 4 for 4 for like 55 yards and a touchdown on the first drive and then didn't do anything the rest of the game. The second leading receiver was James O'Shaughnessy with 24 yards, who got hurt on like the second drive and didn't play the rest of the game. So what did they do from that first drive on?
It
doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. It's terrible, man.
Just get rid of him, man. But to your point about the Bills, Bills looked really good outside of Josh Allen. That was what I had in my notes. Defense looked great. They got the Dolphins down early, and it was just lights out for the Dolphins after that. Brissett couldn't do anything. I don't know what to make of the Dolphins without Tua. I think they're kind of screwed, man. Even if they get Will Fuller back, it's
what
just,
do you think? What do you think about the
really
Deshaun Watson rumors? Do you think those will heat up if Tua's out for an extended period of time?
I think they have to. But the problem is then what do they trade? Because the marquee piece of the trade would have been Tua probably going back to the Texans.
Yeah,
Maybe the Texans don't want that.
It'd still be Tua. It'd be Tua and draft picks. Like, it'd be Tua draft picks players. That offensive line just looks bad in Miami. It looks bad. It looks bad. They look like a bad football team. But I wanted to end the show talking about who I believe is the best team in the NFL, and it's not even close, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know it was the Atlanta Falcons, but they did what they needed to do, and they stomped the mud hole in them, 25-48. Atlanta did keep it close and made it competitive for a little bit, but when things got down to the nitty-gritty, the GOAT, Tom Brady, 24 for 36, 276, and 5 touchdowns. Rob Gronkowski is back. I think he's probably tight end 1 in fantasy right now, even over Darren Waller, because he's just catching touchdowns every week. Gronk 4 for 39, 2 touchdowns on 5 targets. Godwin had a touchdown, 62 yards. Mike Evans had a touchdown, 75 yards. AB, this was the AB game that he did nothing. 3 targets, 1 catch, 17 yards. Leonard Fournette, 52 rushing yards. They don't run the ball at all. Ronald Jones did see life. He did carry the ball, 6 carries, 27 yards, and had a critical first down pickup. He looked fine, so maybe Ronald Jones still isn't dead. Look, Ronald Jones is a good running back when he can hold on to the ball. But Tom Brady is just a GOAT, man. Like, he's incredible. I have nothing else to say about him. He should be front runner for NFL MVP. Tampa Bay Buccaneers should be locked. I mean, he's got 9 touchdowns in 2 games. He very well may hit 50 again, with no Randy Moss, with no Wes Welker. He's just incredible. The Bucs are so good. Falcons, Matt Ryan had 300 passing, 2 touchdowns. He did throw 3 interceptions, a pick 6. Mike Davis stinks. Kyle Pitts showed up to play, 5 for 73. Calvin Ridley had 10 targets, 7 for 63, and 1 touchdown. Cordero Patterson probably needs to be utilized more. And in any competitive 12-team league, you better have Cordero Patterson because he's getting carries out of the backfield, and he's one of the primary target getters for Matt Ryan. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are just an incredible, incredible team. And yes, we've got Monday Night Football tonight, the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. Everybody is taking the Packers. Look at the money line, like nothing. I mean, the prudent bet would be to take Detroit on the money line at plus 456 for them to just win the game. I don't know what to expect out of this one. I don't know if Rodgers is actually going to come to play, if he's just kind of haphazard. And I don't know how good Green Bay is. New Orleans looked terrible. We didn't even talk about the Saints game. Saints and the who they played, the Panthers. Christian McCaffrey.
No
goated.
Respect.
Yeah, goated. The Panthers defense is legit. So I'll just say
legit.
that the Panthers defense is legit. Christian McCaffrey is very good. DJ Moore very good, but that defense is legit. New Orleans, as I suspected, we'll probably be looking for a quarterback in the 2022 NFL draft class, and we'll see Taysom Hill play at some point. But what are your thoughts on tonight's Monday Night Football game? Jay, real quick before we get out of here.
I'm interested to see what happens with Detroit. We talked about a few narratives kind of playing out in week 2. Is Detroit actually pretty good? We expected the Eagles to put up a fight against the 49ers. Little behold, they didn't really. But is Detroit's offense actually better than we kind of expected it to be? And that's what I'm going to be looking for. If you want to take the spread, I probably wouldn't. And then the one bet that I would take is Aaron Jones over his rushing prop, 67.5. I know I made that graphic whether we use it or not. Betting on a bounce back on Aaron Jones. He averages 96 rushing yards against Detroit over the past 3 seasons. So that's the prop I would look at. And then to your point about Tom Brady is, I believe, 14 touchdowns away from throwing more touchdowns in his 40s than he did in his 20s.
What? Say that again?
Yeah. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but Tom Brady is 14 touchdowns away from throwing more touchdowns in his 40s than he did in his 20s. I don't remember who pulled the stat. I saw it on Twitter last night or this morning. But yeah, So if he throws 15 touchdowns, he will have thrown more touchdowns in his 40s than he did in his 20s.
Wow. I mean, he's the GOAT, and I think he's going to win NFL MVP this year. Tampa Bay is going to really contend for another Super Bowl title, and Disney's going to make a movie about Tom Brady at some point in time because it's just an incredible story. He's a great football player. Jay, appreciate you on this Monday morning. Everybody in the comments, thank you for tapping in. We'll be back tomorrow to recap the Monday Night Football game, dive into the college slate a little bit earlier this week so we can spend the back half of the week strictly focusing on the NFL. Appreciate y'all waking up with me every single day. Y'all have a blessed Monday. Be positive, hustle, motivate, be great, baby. We out. Peace.